The consent agenda this evening consists of A, approve the minutes of the following: City Council work session, October 18th, 2022. City Council regular meeting, October 18th, 2022. B, authorize the mayor and city clerk treasurer to execute a cash six-driver feedback sign agreement between McLeod County and the city of Winsted for the construction of a maintenance of a radar drive feedback sign, DFB, to be installed on County State Aid Highway 6 in the city of Winsted. C, schedule a public hearing for January 3rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the City Council chambers at Winsted City Hall to consider adopting amendments to the fee scheduled ordinance. D, adopt Resolution R 22-34, authorizing Jeff Martin, auctioneer, Incorporated, to sell forfeited property obtained by the Winsted Police Department at the discretion of the Chief of Police and City Administrator. E, adopt Resolution R 22-35, approving the release of easement by Northern Gas Company for the real property of McLeod County, Minnesota, originally recorded April 1991. F, adopt Resolution R 22-36, approving the release of easement of Northern Natural Gas Company for real property in McLeod County, Minnesota, originally recorded in June 1967. G, authorize the city administrator to execute a quote with the Computer Integration Technology, CIT, for the installation and configuration of upgraded wireless internet connections at Winsted City Hall for the amount not to exceed $2,565. H, adopt Resolution R 22-37, accepting a contribution from gambling proceeds from the Church of Holy Trinity in the amount of $2,500 to be dedicated to the City Park Fund. I, adopt Resolution R 22-38, to accept a donation for the Winsted Volunteer Fire Department in the amount of $902.41 to be dedicated toward the Winsted Volunteer Fire Department Capital Equipment Fund. J, authorize the mayor to execute a liability coverage waiver form allowing the city of Winsted to not waive the monetary limits on municipal tort liability established by the Minnesota State Statute 466-04 for the 2023 property and casualty insurance contract. K, authorize the city administrator not to purchase no-fault sewer backup insurance coverage for the 2023 property and casualty insurance contract. L, authorize the city administrator to purchase $1 million in excess liability coverage for the 2023 property and casualty insurance contract. M, accept the voluntary resignation of Mr. Tyler Nelson from the position of full-time police officer with the Winsted Police Department effective December 12, 2022. N, accept the voluntary resignation of Mr. John Davidson as fire chief and firefighter for the Winsted Volunteer Fire Department effective December 31st, 2022. O, appoint Mrs. Janie Fairchild to the position of voluntary emergency medical responder with the Winsted Volunteer Fire Department contingent upon passing a criminal background check, pre-employment physical, and a drug and alcohol test. P, approve the claims list for December 6, 2022. This is the consent agenda. I need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3 on the agenda this evening is public hearing regarding truth in taxation and to accept public comment. Adam.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Again, state statute dictates the City Council needs to host a public hearing in regards to the proposed budget and general and debt service levies. That's what this agenda item includes this evening. We'll talk about our process, how we got to this point in the budgeting process. We'll look at the general fund budget from an expenditure and revenue perspective. we'll look at our overall proposed 2023 general and debt service property tax levies, as well as conduct then the hearing and give the opportunity for the public to make comment. So again, this process starts way back in July with the city staff reviewing their budgets with their staff and making recommendations to myself as the city administrator. At that point, I put together a preliminary budget and start presenting that to the city council beginning on August 16th at our first city council work session. We have a second work session or an additional work session on September 6th. That one typically focuses more on capital expenditures versus operational expenditures. Then we had an additional one on September 14th. And lastly, we approved the preliminary levy, both general fund and debt service levy, on September 20th. Moving forward, we had a day-long budgeting work session that reviewed all of the city's funds. That was held in the Volmer room with the city council. And then again, that brings us to this evening on December 6th. Moving forward, on December 20th, the city council will adopt the 2023 budget and recommended levies. When we go through our budgets and we have that day-long work session, we recognize that every decision we make not only impacts 2023, but it impacts the following years as well. So we do include some assumptions or some projections into our budget models over a 5-year period. These are the percentages that we use as we do that modeling. Certainly not final increases or final proposals, just numbers that we use for projections to move forward. Looking at our funds as a whole, all of our funds, you can see that overall we are budgeting to at least a balanced budget, if not a bit of a surplus in some funds. For example, our sewer fund right now is budgeted to a surplus of $92. Our water fund is budgeted to a surplus of $1,430. But our capital fund, we are looking to spend $197,000 more than what we're collecting in revenue there. That's just based on planned projects that we had saved up for over the previous years, and we're implementing those projects this year. For example, one of those planned projects could be improvements to our downtown street lighting. We're looking at purchasing some public works equipment, etc. Again, we've budgeted for those expenditures in previous years. Now we're realizing those expenditures this year. Again, as we look at our operating fund, though, specifically our general fund or our operating fund, some assumptions that are built into that budget are to continue the implementation of our 2022 compensation plan, which includes cost increase to employee benefits so that we're competitive in both retaining our staff as well as attracting new staff as needed. That budget, our operating budget, again, was reallocated based on the actual needs of the department. So if we had previously budgeted, $5,000 maybe for cell phone usage, but actually we're only expending $3,500, we adjusted that budget to reflect that, adjust those funds to be used elsewhere or to be just cut. So again, we do that annually, reevaluate our budgets to make sure that we're not over budgeting in specific line items. But ultimately, the budget as presented does complement our full-time equivalent employees. We're not looking at adding any additional staff, as well as we're not looking at reducing any of our staffing levels in 2023. Some additional assumptions within that budget. We continue our previous funding strategy that was implemented back in 2017 to allocate dollars for future projects. So ultimately we are planning future projects. We're budgeting for them now, so we build up those funds. We have to lessen our reliability on or relying on bonding for projects. So again, we are continuing our street improvement strategy. We reallocated funds to our park CIP, our capital improvement fund, because last year we had reduced those or cut those out completely. We reallocated $10,000 to that funding. We are continuing to fund our Economic Development Authority. That was first funded last year, and we are continuing that at a funding level of $10,000 per year. And then also note that we are abating some property taxes for some commercial projects as incentives, and we continue to abate those for a few more years. Those abatements started in 2017, 2020. They'll be realized or ending in the forward closer to 2030. Typically, we'll look at a line item by line item for every fund within our general fund and look at every reduction or increase that's over between $500 and $1,000. We took a little bit different stance at evaluating this year. We are focusing more on some of our inflation costs, and that's what this chart's looking at. Recognizing, I know that's hard to see a little bit, but recognizing that just based on our general inflation cost, we're seeing an additional operational cost of just over $51,000. So our basic inflation costs, similar to most homeowners, are in terms of electric utilities, gas utilities, repair and maintenance cost. Our janitorial contract gone up by over 100% in some areas. So again, those type of things, gas and oil, etc., within all of our departments as a whole, are, at least in terms of operational costs, are going up by anticipated just over $51,000. Looking at our general fund or our operations fund, from a revenue perspective, 58% of the revenue within that fund comes from the property tax levy that is issued onto the property owners. 33% of that budgeted revenues comes in the form of state aid, with the bulk of that being local government aid. And then we do realize some revenues in fees, fines, and permits, as well as just miscellaneous revenues throughout the year. From a fund standpoint, general government accounts for most of that revenue. That's where our property tax revenue is entered in, as well as the local government aid. Public safety does generate a small amount of revenue, as well as public works and parks. Parks is mostly in the form of donations. We're not budgeting for any additional changes in those revenues from the previous year. Again, that's stayed flat from a budgeting perspective. But the revenues in our general fund are proposed to go up by 3.84%. Again, from the tax levy perspective, as well as local government aid. Dollars wise, that would equate to $79,501 additional revenue planned. From an expenditure perspective, again, as it has been in recent years, it's split pretty evenly, with the bulk of our expenditures coming out of the general government fund, the public works department, or the public safety departments. And that's pretty common with cities our size, where that's the bulk of your expenditures. Again, we are realizing a bit of reduction in the expenditures from the previous year in general government, but otherwise, we are realizing an 8% increase in public safety expenditures, which equate to $44,000. And then public works, looking at a 4.02% increase in expenditures, for $18,668. When you look at our general fund as a whole, we'll need to start continuing our discussion on planning to increase our reserves, per se. Our fund balance isn't matching our increased costs over the recent years. And this chart depicts that. Our fund balance has stayed relatively flat, and that's because we've been budgeting at a balanced budget versus budgeting for some reserves. Looking at our property tax levy, just understand that our property tax levy is comprised of two parts. Our general levy, which again is our operating levy, and then our debt levy, which is a bonds or loans, essentially, for capital projects. That preliminary property tax levy was established on September 30th. That levy cannot be increased. It can only be decreased. Currently, our preliminary property tax levy is at 10.99%. that was established in September. Looking at some of the trends of the levies in the state of Minnesota as a whole, in 2022, property tax levies increased by 5.9% compared to the previous year. Over the last 3 years, on average, property tax levies have gone up by 5.8%. With where we're at with inflation right now and our increased costs, we certainly anticipate that to continue in future year, at least in the immediate future years of 2023 and 2024. For 2023 in Minnesota, the average preliminary levy was set at 9.6%, a 9.6% increase. Again, just slightly below what we established ours at 10.99. Our classification of our properties, this stays pretty consistent over the years, but 50% of our tax revenue comes from residential homesteads, whereas 36% of it comes from commercial or industrial properties. Winstead's unique in that area, where most cities that are with population similar to ours, their commercial industrial tax revenue would be significantly less, 36%. It's more likely to be closer to 22 or 23%. Again, we certainly benefit from our business tax base and our manufacturing tax base. Looking specifically now at our debt service levy, again, a big portion of our proposed tax increase is due to additional debt levy of $89,000. We committed to improving the streets in Pheasant Run as well as Winston on the Lake. We did take out a bond for that over, I believe that was a 15-year period. So we're committed to those debt service payments, and again, that equates to a pretty big chunk of our proposed property tax levy increase. So we'll have an overall debt levy $457,300. Now understand, we also have additional debt that is not funded through our debt levy. It could be funded through our enterprise funds, being our water and sewer funds. It may be funded through our fire department. We have bond for the fire engine. We have some bonds that are paid through the general fund. So not part of our debt levy, but part of our general levy. Let me go back one more here. Looking at the tax levy history, 2023 compared to 2024, I just mentioned our debt levy at $457,300. That's an increase of 25,000.48%. But now our general levy, our operating levy, is proposed to go up by $64,150 or 5.22%. So as presented this evening, our preliminary levy has been decreased to a proposed levy now as we stand at 9.86%. So a reduction of just over 1% from our preliminary levy for an overall property tax increase of $157,002 compared to the previous year. So again, from our preliminary levy, we can decrease it, we cannot increase it. Looking at the history of our property tax levies over the last few years, as well as looking forward, we've had pretty significant property tax increases in 2021, 2023 as proposed. Those are both reflecting increases in debt levy, capital projects. So in 2021, we took on a capital project. I think that was associated with a stormwater project. And then again in 2023, this debt levy is reflecting a street maintenance project. In years when we're not taking on those capital projects, we're staying between our goal of 3 and 5% increases. On the bright side, we are realizing significant debt being sunsetted in 2027. This first bond, $37,500, associated with the City Hall. The second one is a street project in Westgate. This third one will be realized, so those first two will be realized in our debt levy. The next two, these for the EDA lease revenue bond, as well as the industrial park stormwater bond, those will be both realized in our general fund. Again, you can see that here in 2028, when those are realized, we'll actually see a reduction in the overall levy. And then in our enterprise funds, the well house project sunsets in 2026, and a sewer bond associated with, I believe that was Westgate, sunsets in 2027. So again, significant debt reduction in our general levy, debt levy, as well as our enterprise funds in the very near future. But as we stand this evening, looking at an overall property tax levy of $1,750,050. How does that impact the properties here in Winsted, specifically the median valued home? What we realized this year is that the median valued home, that price increased dramatically as assessed by McLeod County. So in 2022, the median valued home was $198,000, or just over $198,000. In 2023, it's estimated the median valued home will be $253,876. So with that, we'll see a pretty steep reduction in our net property tax rate. We're to be taxed at a lower rate. We'll still realize an increase in overall property taxes of about $199 on that median valued home based on the proposed tax levy. So again, that's not uncommon that cities are seeing a reduction in their net tax capacity rate. That's really due to property values increasing significantly in the area. So as proposed, the recommended 2023, I know I corrected that. I don't know why I didn't save. But again, we continue our strategy to save, to rely less on bonds, to save and build up our capital improvement funds, both in the streets as well as within the fire department and the parks and the capital funds. But also, we are continuing to our goal of committing funds to economic development. And this certainly reflects the very difficult economic climate that we're in, just in terms of we have the same inflation issues that all the businesses and the homeowners are dealing with, where our costs are increasing dramatically. So how does this impact the individual properties? This chart isn't quite right. We're looking at a fee. Let me see if I can pull up a different chart here. I'm having with this. We pull it up on here. Okay, we are looking at an overall impact to the property owner of $266 annually. We include the property tax levy, the median valued home of being $199, and then the proposed fees for utilities being at a 3.5% increase. The impact to the property owners will be $266 per year. So what's next? So this is your opportunity to address the City Council with any concerns. City Council will consider this testimony as they move to adopt final budget and tax levy on December 20th. If you have concerns regarding your property values, that needs to be addressed with McLeod County as part of their local Board of Appeals meetings in the spring. So that being said, I know I fumbled through that a bit. I'm not sure why those charts weren't wrong on that slideshow. But if you have any questions on that, really now is the time to ask that. Or if you have questions after the meeting, you can certainly contact me at the information that's provided on the screen. That being said, Mr. Mayor, you are welcome to take comment.
I will now open the public hearing. If anybody wishes to address the council, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. If there are no other questions or comments, I will call for a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I have the motion. Do I have anyone opposed? Everybody say no. Guys, don't talk very loud. And we'll close the public hearing. Okay, first item under new business is regarding pumps for the wastewater treatment facility. Adam again.
Sure. This agenda item is in regards to the need to replace some of our pumps at the wastewater treatment facility. So I've asked Jake Salzbeer, the city engineer from Bolton Mink, to join us this evening to kind of recap this project for the city council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So here to talk about the wastewater plant. So as you may recall, People's Service brought forward an issue at a council meeting earlier this year with some of the pumps out there. So as a response to that, we started looking into that. The pumps are related to the effluent lift station, so the end of the treatment process where the wastewater is discharged off-site. As you may recall, this project was quite lengthy. We started the design in 2014, and then we had some hiccups as far as some issues outside of the city's control at the state level. And then so the construction wasn't finalized until 2019. So there was a big gap there, 5-year gap from when we started to when we finished this project. So in that time, the flows changed considerably from when the design first started. We sized the pumps. We completed, I think the number is 3 lining projects, maybe it was 4, but we lined a lot of sewer mains, reducing the inflow and infiltration, so basically reducing the amount of wastewater that the city is treating. Then the big one was in that Kingsley Street project where we found an old connection where the storm sewer was connected into the sanitary sewer. So every time it rained, rainwater was going straight to the treatment plant. The city was paying to, treat, convey, pump, treat with chemicals, etc. So that was taken offline as part of the Kingsley Street project. So fast forward, we designed the pumps, installed them, flows much less, so the pumps were too big. So they burned out prematurely. We worked with the provider of those pumps, who was Quality Flow. They did some loaners, things operating while we evaluated. So redesigned with the new flows. Those pumps work well, so the quote in your packet this evening is to permanently install that same size pump at the effluent lift station of the wastewater plant. The price included is just under $45,000. I tried to get an updated quote ahead of tonight's meeting. I failed to do so, but discussions with them, we think that number is going to be closer to $40,000. We think we can get that number down a little bit. So the recommendation is to install the pumps for a price not to exceed $45,000. I'm hoping that's closer to $40,000, but to be determined. We would they have reached out and asked about this project. They want to get moving on it. They have a lot of equipment they're trying to move. So I did inform them that we were discussing it with the council tonight. So I'm hoping to get the approval without maybe not having that final price. So with that, as I explained, that the pumps were sized too largely, so Bolton and Mink takes some ownership in that. We have that issue then combined with the flows changing, so we are willing to contribute towards this replacement. I've always told Adam, if there's an error, we will make it right. Also, since he's about to leave, he's making sure he holds me to that at least once. So
in other words, we own you.
let's not go that far, but yeah, on a smaller scale, perhaps. Yes.
So we certainly recognized, that there's multiple factors in why we're having issues with these pumps, starting with the way the MPCA delayed the process of our designing and funding and all that. Our flows changed because we made improvements. Now, ultimately, graciously, Bolton Mink is taking, I guess for lack of better terms, put some skin in the game and saying that, we'll also, maybe we also contributed to the issue per se, which whether they did or didn't, I don't know. But luckily, they're stating that what this motion, if we agreed to proceed with that, recognizes that their contribution to the project will be in a discount of our engineering fees, but that'll be in our general engineering fees versus any engineering fee specific to the sewer department, just because we don't have any planned sewer projects. So we'll realize our savings in our general engineering versus sewer engineering per se. Just please recognize that.
So it's a negative issue, but the positive is the flows are less. It's nice to see those lining projects that we've completed are paying off. And we always say we'll try to get I&I down, inflow and infiltration down to zero. We'll never get there, but that's always the goal. Obviously, the less flow you're treating, your electrical costs go down, your chemical costs go down, your staffing costs go down, everything goes down. So those projects have made an impact, however, contributed to a hiccup in this case with these pumps, but that's where things are at.
Is there any further questions?
Thank you for contributing.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution R-22-39, authorizing the city administrator to approve a quote from Quality Flow Systems to install new effluent pumps at the wastewater treatment facility for an amount not to exceed $45,000 and authorizing an engineering credit from Bolton and Mink Incorporated in the amount of $20,000 for general engineering fees.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item under new business is regarding the city administration search proposal. Adam?
Sure. Again, with my resignation, or I guess with the vacancy of the city administrator position, the city council has researched or has asked for information proposals regarding the hiring of an executive search firm to lead the hiring process to fill this vacancy of the city administrator. So in your packet, you have a proposal from David Drown's Associates, specifically Liza Donabauer, to provide that service. This is the same consultant that you've used in the past when you've had a vacancy of this position. The packet does include some details of the firm. Now, ultimately, the city of Winston is familiar with this firm. They've done a very good job in this process in the past. Most importantly, within this packet probably is the proposed timelines. If the city council decides to move forward and approve this proposal, we also need to discuss appointing a committee consisting of 2 city council members, maybe 2 staff members, just to do some of the more minor tasks associated with the hiring process in terms of making recommendations on the profile that is used for the recruitment process, looking at wage scales or wage scales, etc. So with that being said, in addition to that, I guess, note that this proposal includes Liza being on site next Tuesday to gather information from city council members on the type of candidate that they want to try to hire, some of the qualities they're looking for, as well as meeting with different stakeholders throughout the city in terms of staff members, etc. So again, those are some important timelines that we're working on. Ultimately, this proposal from David Jones Associates is proposing to have a person in place by the beginning of March. So the negotiated contract would occur, approximately around February 21st. Again, with the candidates starting in the beginning of March. With that being said, I'll open up the city council for discussion if they want to proceed with this proposal, if they want to go a different route, or if they want more information, or if they have any questions for me. Certainly recognize this is a difficult decision because the costs associated with hiring this type of consultant. So again, nobody is taking this decision lightly by any means.
The only thing I want to state is I am kind of in favor of this only due to the fact of what we've been told to us by the city clerk's office. Number one, it would burden them and they are short. And number two, we could have people from their office actually running for this position. And I don't know how we get by the fairness part by not having an outside firm. Am I in favor of spending $22,000? I'm not. but I don't know how you get around that if we have someone internally apply.
I'll go next. I am totally in favor of this. I don't like the idea of $22,000, but doing some rough calculation with Adam's departure and the new administrator will be paid less than Adam, plus Adam was scheduled for a raise. With all those savings, I'm estimating that this will be paid for in between 5 and 6 months. I really think that the council needs to go with this route. I don't think we can provide the same amount of work that they would be doing for, develop a position, profile, and advertise. I don't know how we're going to do that. I mean, I suppose we could, but timing becomes an issue when we have to do some of these things. And I think one of the big things is that none of us are experts in this area. And it'd be nice to have somebody guide us through the process. And in the middle of all this, we're going to have a new council. So they're going to have to come on to speed. And if we're going to be doing this ourselves, I think the delay is going to push us back past March. And that's going to cost us more money. That's just my opinion.
Any other comments? If not, I'll ask for a second. Or I'll ask for a motion. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself.
I'll make that motion. Consider a motion to approve proposal from David John Associates Human Resources Incorporated to conduct a search and administrator the hiring process for a city administrator in the city of Winston for cost not to exceed $22,000.
I have a motion. Can I have a second, please?
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor, I'll abstain from voting.
Pardon me?
I'll abstain from voting.
Okay. Motion carried.
And then, Mr. Mayor, before we proceed, we had some discussion on if any council members would be interested in assisting in putting together a profile then, or,
I'll do
making
it.
the recommendation
I'll
to
volunteer.
David
Well,
Jones.
there's only two that should.
Okay,
I will.
okay. And then is the city council okay with, obviously, that committee making some of those decisions versus having council decision in terms of what that profile looks like, how it's advertised for recruitment? Okay, 'cause again, that will allow us to speed up the hiring process per se. We don't have to have everything be a city council decision. Okay, so if Tom and Steve would participate on that, and then are you okay if Raquel and I also sit on that committee? Unless Chief Helt, I'm guessing you don't have time right now with your schedule. Well, I hate to put another burden on you with your current schedule. Okay. So it's not that I don't think you can do it or aren't valuable. I'll just make sure I'm relaying things through you before I bring it to committee.
If it works out, we could meet on his schedule too.
Yeah, if you
Meet
don't
in
mind
the
doing that
evening.
night. Why don't we wrap, we can discuss internally those last two positions of that committee, if that's okay. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, that should be sufficient to proceed.
You need a motion though.
Oh, you did that.
I don't, okay, we're good.
All right. The next item on the agenda is organizational report. Mr. Arden Severson, please. Lions Club.
Our job is we try to serve both young people and old people. And
We do not use the word old.
Well, elderly.
Yes.
We start out with the third grade dictionaries right now. We're passing out to both 37 children in both the parochial school and the grade school. This will be done within this month. And our another one we use is the Constitution. We do in every other year for the 5th and 6th graders. So, and this is to keep our kids involved in the and knowing goes on in the world today, in our own country. And we serve, as you've seen on the screen there, we serve a meal, an ecumenical meal for elderly, and not necessarily just elderly. It's both for bachelors and widows that have meal once a month, the fourth Thursday of the month. And it's an ecumenical meeting. Also, we used to have Father Paul as our greeter. It's done in St. John's Lutheran Church, and he was always would keep people excited about coming to it. And my wife and I and Mavis Weber and Sandy Byro usually go there at 3 o'clock and help set up. They asked us to help serve the food. So we go there at about 3 o'clock and help get things lined up for serving the meal. And Lion George and Diane usually help come and clean things up and wipe down tables and get everything so it's ready for the next group to come in. We have a thing that our Lions International was founded by Melvin Jones, and he was an insurance man, and his thoughts were different than a lot of the clubs. The Lions Clubs are different than other men's groups in the day because their new pledge to provide unselfish service to their community and those in need. The first annual convention was held that fall with 23 clubs participating. By 1925, there were about 60,000 Lions, and it was their convention in Cedar Point, Ohio, that Helen Keller addressed them. She ended her speech with the following appeal: "The opportunity to bring to you, Lions, is this: to foster and sponsor work of the American Foundation for the Blind, and will you help me hasten a day when there shall be no preventable blindness, no little deaf, blind, or untaught, no blind man or woman unaided, to appeal to you as Lions, you who have your sight, your hearing, and who are strong and brave and kind. Will you constitute yourself Knights of the Blind and cause against darkness?" So that's what we were. He gave this command to us to do, and we've done that ever since. We have hearing and eye bank. We have diabetes. There's many. There's the last one is cancer for children, research work, and you've seen enough of that on TV and so forth. So that's places that we try to help and aid and look for people in our community. Another thing we do just recently was, and we do it every year, we asked the clergy to give us names of people who are in need, and we will. They give the names to the policeman, and he will go to the grocery store, or we will pay for it, and that's fun for a couple that are in need and a family of four that's in need. And we never know who they are, but the policeman takes care of that with his help. So that's pretty much what we think we try to do. We try to elect new representatives each year. Our international president is from Minnesota this year, from Bird Island, and you can only be international president once in your lifetime. The district governor, which I had been 98, 99, and no longer I could be a district governor a second time in any place. So, I mean, it's good when they do this. We've hopefully trying to do with our Lions Clubs is prevent from having the same president each year. And this has caused problems when we do this. And when I was governor, I lost 2 Lions clubs, and 2 Lions clubs where there was the president of the club one was 3 years, one was 5 years, that they were president that many years in a row. And you become dictator rather than the minds of men are challenged. I hope I gave you enough about us. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
No other questions for Arden?
Do you know, Arden, about how many members you have in Winstead?
Right now, we're down. I think we're at around 18
Okay.
members, 18 or 19.
And how does somebody apply if they want to be a member?
We have, and I don't have any with, I'm sorry, an application to give you one, and you can fill it out, and then we introduce you to introductor and enter our club.
And you could ask any Lion for that?
Anyone, any line, you bet.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. And we need young people to get involved because, when you get up in the 90s, you kind of lose track of community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got a ways to go then.
Oh, cut it out. Did you hear that? Okay, we've come to the open forum portion of the meeting. If anyone wishes to address the council, please step up to the podium and state your name and address, just for the record. Other than that, if we do not, and I don't think we do, I have an open forum. Adam?
Sure. Just a couple of announcements. I have received a couple calls in the last few days regarding our snow removal processes. So just as a reminder to the city council, in case you're getting similar calls, we do have a snow removal policy that was adopted by the city council that dictates some of those processes for snow removal. But I know on this last snowstorm that we received, or the last snow event, I guess would maybe be a better way to depict it, that was kind of an all-day long event where it starts snowing in the morning, then end until 3:30, 4 o'clock, somewhere in there. And then our crew actually did go out right then. They waited till it's done snowing and went out mid-afternoon versus waiting even till evening. But even with that, that snow was packed into the road just for the traffic of the day. If it snows at night and they're able to scrape it off at night, they can scrape it off before it gets packed down. So it certainly appeared as if they weren't doing a great job. Their operations didn't change. It was more the change or the difference was the timing of the snowfall event. So especially on heavy traveled roads, that snow got packed down. They weren't able to get it all off at once. Now, days after the storm then, as the snowpack loosened up due to the heat and the sun, etc., then they went and re-scraped it. So sometimes that's irritating to residents, and I get that because then they have to clean the end of the driveway maybe a second time. But unfortunately, that's just part of that maintenance operation to get that snow off. So again, they didn't change anything in their operations. I know I was questioned on that. Things have changed. We have not changed our operations. The only thing that really changed was the timing of the snowfall and when they had to run their operations. We have the same amount of equipment, the same type of equipment. We're operating in the same manner, and we'll continue to do the best we can to get that snow completely scraped off to a black surface, to an asphalt surface, as soon as we can. And I think the guys did a good job of that. I know downtown on Friday morning, this was about 2 days after the event, they were really able to get a lot scraped off, and it was in good shape for that winter festival then on Friday and Saturday. So again, if there's any questions on snow removal policy, don't hesitate to reach out to me or to our staff. They can kind of go through those operations with anybody that has questions, by all means. But moving forward, we do have a park commission meeting and a plan and zoning commission meeting scheduled for December 12th. So on Monday, the park starts at 5 p.m. Plan and zoning commission at 6 p.m. I know specifically for plan and zoning commission, I believe we'll have another concept plan review of a potential development project here in Winstead. So I know that's a lot of people are interested in that. So again, an additional concept review is scheduled for that plan and zoning commission meeting. With that being said, that's all that I have this evening, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Talk about openings on all the commissions.
We do have an opening, I believe, on every commission. Now, we have had one recent application for the Economic Development Authority. I think that one is full, but we do have an opening on the Park Commission, an opening on the Planning Commission, and an opening on the Airport Commission. So again, if you are interested in being involved in local government, participating in these commissions is a great first step in learning what that entails, learning about government operations. And so again, I highly encourage, if you have aspirations to participate in city council or in the mayor position, participating at the commission level is a great first step in an educational process.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion.
I'll second
I
it.
have a second. Opposed?
Aye.
I knew you, Tom. I knew it. Nobody opposed, so our meeting is adjourned.
Officially.